It was raining again. The kind of chilly drizzle that seeps into your bones when you've been out too long, especially when your only pair of shoes has holes in the soles. I clutched my worn-out folder, shielding it under my jacket. Inside were copies of my resume, slightly crumpled but still dry. I was on my way to a job interview, my last shot this month. Rent was overdue. Mom's hospital bills were piling up. If I didn't get this job, I didn't know what else to do. That was when I heard it. Thief! Someone stop him. He stole my purse. I turned and saw an old woman standing near a bus stop, trembling and pointing after a man darting across the street. People glanced but didn't move. I didn't think twice. I ran. The man was fast, but I used to be on the school track team. Years ago, before I had to drop out. I chased him through a narrow alley, dodging trash bins and puddles, my breath sharp in my lungs. When I caught up, I lunged, my hands grabbing the purse. He punched me hard across the face, but I didn't let go. I snatched the bag and stumbled back, then turned and sprinted away before he could recover. By the time I returned, soaked and panting, the old woman gasped and reached for her purse like it was made of gold. You got it back?" she whispered. I nodded, wincing. My elbow was scraped, and my cheek throbbed. She took my hand in both of hers, eyes glistening. "What's your name, dear?" "Anya," I said softly. "I was on my way to a job interview, but I'm probably late now." She paused, looking at me in a way that made me feel seen, truly seen, for the first time in years. "You're a good girl," she said. "Don't worry. Life has a strange way of rewarding people like you." I smiled politely, not expecting anything. I didn't even ask her name. But that one moment would change my life in a way I could never imagine. After making sure the old lady was okay, I apologized and rushed off, half running, half limping toward the company building where my interview was supposed to be. By the time I got there, the receptionist gave me a sympathetic look. "I'm sorry," she said. "Your appointment was 30 minutes ago. The HR manager has already left." I stood there, dripping, throat tight. "Please, is there any way to reschedule?" She hesitated, then gently shook her head. "You'll have to apply again next month." I nodded, trying not to cry right there in the lobby. My chest felt heavy, and my stomach, empty since morning, gave a soft growl of protest. As I turned to leave, a familiar voice echoed through the hallway. "There she is." I turned, and saw the old lady from earlier, now dry, dressed in a clean overcoat, stepping out of the private elevator. Behind her was a tall, sharply dressed man in his early 30s, exuding authority, his eyes locked onto mine, piercing, unreadable, and then, a flicker of recognition. "Anya," the old woman called warmly. "Don't go. Come here." I hesitated, confused. "Ma'am, I've been looking for you. My grandson was worried sick when he heard what happened. This is his building. You know, he's the CEO." My mind blanked. "The CEO?" The man beside her gave a small nod. "I'm Ethan Hale. You saved my grandmother today. That makes you someone very important." I was just doing what anyone would. I stammered. "No," he said calmly. "Most people didn't. You did." The receptionist's mouth was slightly open. I could feel her eyes on me. Everyone's eyes. "Come," the old woman said. "Have lunch with us. My grandson and I would love to talk." And just like that, I went from being a rejected interviewee to sitting across from the CEO of Hale Industries at a private dining room on the top floor, still soaking wet, cheeks bruised, and utterly lost in a world I had no place in. Or so I thought. Because that day, I didn't just walk into a building. I walked into their lives. And nothing would ever be the same again. I sat rigidly at the edge of a long mahogany dining table, completely overwhelmed. My wet clothes clung to me, and I was sure I looked like a complete mess, bruised cheek, frizzy hair, and all. Ethan Hale, the CEO, sat across from me, silent and unreadable. Beside him, his grandmother, Mrs. Eleanor Hale, poured tea into a delicate porcelain cup and slid it toward me like we were old friends. "Drink, dear," she smiled. "You need something warm." I reached for it with trembling fingers. "Thank you." Ethan finally spoke, his voice calm but firm. "Do you know how many people would have turned their backs and kept walking today?" I looked down at the tea. I wasn't thinking. I just reacted. "Exactly," Eleanor said. "That kind of heart can't be taught." There was a pause. I felt their eyes studying me, like they were trying to see beneath the surface. I didn't know what to say or do. I wasn't used to this kind of attention, especially not from powerful people. Ethan leaned forward, folding his hands. You were here for an interview? Yes, sir. I nodded quickly. I was applying for an administrative assistant position, but I was late because of what happened. And if I offered you a job now, right here at Hale Industries? He asked. My breath caught. Well, yes. Of course. I mean, if I'm qualified. Sir. Eleanor chuckled softly. You're overqualified in the department that truly matters. Ethan didn't laugh. He simply studied me for a long second. Be at this address tomorrow at 8 a.m. He slid a small white card across the table. You'll be working directly with me, for a trial period. My eyes widened. Work for you? You said you needed a job. Consider this your second chance. I took the card with shaking hands. Thank you. I won't let you down. He nodded, then stood and left without another word. Eleanor reached across and patted my hand gently. He's not cold, just cautious, but he remembers what matters. You've already passed his first test. Sweetheart. I walked out of Hale Tower that day not as a failed applicant, but as a girl who had just been given a key to a life I never dreamed of. But little did I know, the hardest part hadn't even begun. Because being close to Ethan Hale meant stepping into a world filled with silent expectations, ruthless people, and a love story that neither of us saw coming. The next morning, I arrived at Hale Tower an hour early, dressed in my best outfit, a modest blouse, a knee-length skirt, and the only pair of heels I owned. Slightly scuffed but polished as best I could. My bruised cheek was still tender, so I covered it with some borrowed concealer from my neighbor. I stared at my reflection in the lobby's glass doors and whispered to myself, "You can do this." A man in a dark suit met me in the lobby. "Miss Anya, Mr. Hale is expecting you." The fact that people now referred to me like that, Miss Anya, still didn't feel real. I was led up to the 28th floor. The atmosphere shifted the moment the elevator doors opened. Sleek black marble floors, glass walls, minimalistic decor. Everything whispered wealth and power. Right through there, the man said, pointing to a glass office at the end of the hall. Ethan Hale stood by the window, phone to his ear, back turned toward me. Sunlight streamed in, casting sharp edges around him like a portrait. He wore a tailored navy suit, and even from behind, he radiated control. When he turned, his expression was unreadable. "You're early," he said flatly. "I didn't want to be late." I replied, "Good." He ended his call and gestured to a chair in front of his desk. "You'll be assisting me directly. Calendar management, documents, errands. Think you can handle it?" "Yes, sir," I said quickly. "Don't call me sir," he muttered, eyes flicking toward me. "Just Ethan is fine." That surprised me. The day flew by. I was handed a thick binder of projects, got a crash course on their internal systems, and shadowed Ethan through 3 back-to-back meetings. I stayed quiet, took notes, and tried not to shrink every time someone looked at me with curiosity, or worse, judgment. By afternoon, I noticed the whispers. "She's the one who saved Mrs. Hale, right? Where did she come from? She's working directly with him?" I tried to focus, but the stares burned into me. During a break, I stood in the hallway, rereading Ethan's calendar for the 10th time when a woman approached. She was tall, stunning, and dressed like a runway model in business attire. "You're the new assistant?" she asked, voice sharp beneath the sweetness. "Yes," I nodded politely. "I'm Vanessa. I was Ethan's assistant before, among other things." I blinked. "Oh." She smiled tightly. "Word of advice? This world is different, sweetheart. People like you don't last long in it." Before I could reply, Ethan's voice echoed behind me. "Anya, I need you." Vanessa's eyes narrowed. She turned and walked away without another word. I followed Ethan into his office. Heart pounding. He didn't comment, didn't ask if I was okay. He just pointed to a stack of contracts. "Highlight all discrepancies before the 4 p.m. meeting." I nodded, forcing myself to focus. But deep down, I knew I had just stepped into a war zone, one I wasn't trained for. And yet, something about the way Ethan glanced at me, the rare softness in his eyes, made me wonder, was there more behind his offer than just gratitude? Days passed in a blur. Every morning, I arrived early, sometimes before the sun had fully risen. I memorized Ethan's schedule, anticipated his needs, Learned how he liked his coffee black, 1 sugar, never before 9 a.m., and even figured out that he tapped his pen twice when he was bored in a meeting. I became invisible when needed, and essential when he let me be. But despite his strict demeanor, I began to notice things. Like how he paused every time I said thank you. How his fingers clenched slightly whenever someone mentioned Vanessa. Or how his jaw tightened when he saw the bruise on my cheek hadn't fully healed. He never asked personal questions, but he always remembered the answers I didn't realize I'd given. One afternoon, after a long investor call, I brought him a report he requested. He was staring out the window again, a frown carved deep into his features. Set it on the desk, he said without turning. I hesitated. Are you okay? He glanced at me, and for a second, I saw something raw. Exhaustion, maybe, or something deeper. You don't need to ask that, he replied. Maybe not, I said quietly, but I want to. That made him pause. Most people want something from me. Anya, power, money, a name. What do you want? I blinked. The question took me off guard. I want to stop feeling like the world is stacked against me. I admitted, to take care of my mom, to sleep without worrying about bills, and maybe, to do something that matters. For a moment, he just looked at me. Really looked, and I felt like the air had shifted between us. Then his phone rang. The moment shattered. He turned away to take the call, and I slipped out quietly. Later that week, a surprise awaited me. When I reached home after work, a package sat outside my tiny apartment door. No note, just a white box with gold trim. Inside was a designer blazer. My size, subtle, elegant, and far too expensive for someone like me. I brought it to work the next day, holding it like it might disappear if I blinked. I walked into Ethan's office and placed it on his desk. I can't accept this, I said firmly. He looked up from his laptop. Why not? Because I don't want to be kept or pitied. He closed the laptop slowly. It's not pity. Then what is it? He stood up, walked around the desk, and stopped a foot away from me. It's respect, he said simply. You walk in here every day like you don't carry the weight of the world. You work twice as hard as anyone else. You deserve to feel like you belong. My heart pounded. I still can't accept it, I whispered. He studied me for a long second, then nodded. Then return it, but know that I'll keep showing up, just like you do. And for the first time, I didn't feel small. I felt seen. But outside that office, not everyone was ready to see me rise. Because someone powerful, was watching. And they didn't like how close I was getting to Ethan Hale. It began with small things. A coffee order mysteriously changed. Extra cream when Ethan hated it that way. A file I had triple-checked somehow went missing minutes before an important meeting. Then there were the whispered looks, the silence that fell in elevators whenever I stepped in. I could feel it. The walls were closing in, and someone was behind it. One evening, I stayed late to finish preparing slides for an upcoming board presentation. Everyone had gone home, even the janitors. I was alone on the 28th floor when the lights suddenly flickered. And then I heard it. A voice, low, cutting. You don't belong here. I turned sharply. No one. I swallowed hard, heart pounding, and rushed to pack my things. On my way out, I passed Vanessa in the hallway. Her arms folded, her lips curling in that same predatory smile. You look tired, Anya, she said sweetly. The CEO keeping you busy? I'm just doing my job, I replied. She purred. Let's hope that's all you're doing. Men like Ethan don't marry charity cases. I didn't respond. I couldn't, but her words burned in my chest. When I got home that night, I found an envelope taped to my apartment door. No return name. Inside, just a single printed sentence. Stay in your place, or lose it all. I didn't sleep. The next morning, I was pale but composed. I didn't tell Ethan, not yet. I needed to be sure. That day, something else shifted. During a board meeting, one of the senior partners, Mr. Langston, openly questioned my competence. He mocked a typo on a printout, even though I knew it hadn't been there when I sent the file. Ethan looked at me. I braced for him to join in. Instead, he said coldly, Mr. Langston, if you have time to count typos, perhaps you're not busy enough. Anya's work is more accurate than most people in this room. Try showing her the same respect I do. Silence fell over the table. I stared at him, stunned. Later, I stood outside his office, waiting to thank him, but before I could knock, I heard him on the phone inside. I don't care if the board disapproves. She stays. End of discussion. A pause. No, this isn't about gratitude anymore. I stepped away before he saw me, my heart thudding louder than my footsteps. That weekend, something unexpected happened. Mrs. Hale invited me to lunch. Not just at any place, but her private estate on the outskirts of the city. A garden full of roses, sunlight pouring through crystal windows, and staff who addressed her as Madame Eleanor. We sat in a sunroom, sipping tea. She looked at me with the same kind warmth she had when we first met. "You're smart to stay quiet," she said suddenly, "but not too quiet. This world, Ethan's world, isn't gentle." I nodded slowly. "I've been feeling that." She leaned forward. "Do you love my grandson, Anya?" I froze. What? You heard me. I don't know. He's my boss. I respect him deeply. But love, my voice trailed off. Eleanor smiled. "Then I'll ask you again in a few months. When your heart catches up to what your eyes already show." I blushed, speechless. "But listen carefully," she continued. "The wolves are circling. Someone in that company wants you gone. And they won't play fair." My fingers tightened around my teacup. "Why?" "Because Ethan never let anyone get close. Until you." That night, I sat on my tiny balcony, the city glowing in the distance, her words repeating over and over in my mind. I didn't come looking for love, but it was finding me. And it was wrapped in secrets, shadows, and the dangerous heart of a man who had everything except peace. Monday morning arrived like a thunderstorm I wasn't ready for. I walked into the office, pretending everything was normal, but every nerve in my body buzzed with unease. Mrs. Hale's warning still echoed in my mind. The wolves are circling. And they were getting bolder. At 9 a.m., I received a message to bring a confidential file to the boardroom, except the file in the drive had been swapped with something else. A dummy version. Blank. The moment Ethan opened it in front of the senior board, the air in the room turned to ice. He looked up. "Anya, is this some kind of joke?" "No, sir," I said quickly, confused. "That's the file I was given." "Enough." Someone else cut in. "This is the third mistake this week." Eyes were narrowing, whispers circling. I felt the pressure closing in like water filling a sinking ship. I stood frozen, betrayed by something I hadn't done. Then Ethan stood. He didn't speak. He simply took the printed version from his own folder and passed it out to the room himself. "The presentation continues. We won't waste time on technical errors," he said calmly. No one dared argue. But when the meeting ended, I expected him to yell, to demand answers. Instead, he walked into his office and left the door open. "Come in," he said without looking. I stepped inside, head lowered. "Ethan, I swear, I double-checked that file." He didn't answer right away. He was silent for so long. I wondered if he was even listening. Then, without warning, he turned and said, "Do you think I'm blind?" I blinked. "What?" "I see what they're doing. The file, the rumors, the envelope you didn't tell me about." My heart stilled. "How do you know?" "I had your apartment building's cameras checked. You didn't report it to me." "Why?" "I didn't want to seem weak," I whispered. He walked toward me, slowly, eyes dark with something I hadn't seen before, something stormy. "You're not weak, Anya. You're surviving in a den of vipers. And you're still standing." I didn't know what to say. He stopped in front of me, too close. "Why do you keep showing up?" he asked, voice low. "Because I need this job." I breathed. "That's not the only reason." I looked up, and our eyes locked. And that's when it happened. He reached up, and gently touched the fading bruise on my cheek. His thumb brushed it like he was memorizing it. Like it hurt him more than it hurt me. "I should have protected you better," he said, almost to himself. The air between us crackled. Then he stepped back, as if catching himself, and turned away. "This ends now," he said sharply. "Whoever's behind this, I'll handle it. You just keep being you." I nodded, dazed. But as I left his office, I realized something dangerous had shifted. He didn't just see me as a good person anymore. He saw me as his person. And if anyone found out, they wouldn't just come for me. They'd come for both of us. After that moment in his office, nothing felt the same. Ethan didn't say anything the next day, but his actions spoke louder than words. He started walking beside me instead of ahead. He made sure no one interrupted when I spoke during meetings. When Vanessa tried to hand him a report that should have gone through me, he said coldly, Anya handles everything I trust. The entire office noticed. Whispers grew louder. Jealousy flared like wildfire. And it didn't take long before the wolves bared their teeth. It began during the quarterly event Hale Industries held for shareholders and press. Everyone was expected to attend. I borrowed a simple black dress from a friend, pinned my hair up neatly, and tried not to feel like a fraud standing among designer gowns and champagne flutes. But the moment I entered the ballroom, I felt eyes on me. Vanessa approached with a glass of wine and a smile as sharp as broken glass. "Cute dress," she said. "Vintage, or charity?" I didn't flinch. "Borrowed. Beautiful things don't always belong to the rich." Before she could respond, Ethan appeared behind me. "She looks perfect," he said without hesitation. Vanessa's smile froze. "Oh, I didn't realize you two were arriving together." "We didn't," he said, "but we're leaving together." My breath caught. She turned and walked away, her heels like gunshots on the marble floor. "You didn't have to do that," I said under my breath. "I know," he replied, "but I wanted to." Then, before I could blink, he held out his hand. "Dance with me." I stared at him. "What?" "One dance." The music slowed. He stepped closer. People were watching, every powerful investor, every board member, every gossip columnist in disguise. But right then, he didn't seem to care. So neither did I. I placed my hand in his, and we moved to the center of the floor. As we danced, he leaned in slightly. "This world doesn't like outsiders, Anya, but I don't care where you come from." "I do," I whispered, "because if they find out what this is, what we are." "They already know," he said. That scared me more than anything. Because if they knew, they'd come after me harder. Not just to ruin my job, but to ruin me. The song ended, but the moment between us lingered. The next morning, it happened. I walked into my apartment building and saw reporters swarming the front steps. "Anya, is it true you're sleeping with your boss? How long has this relationship been going on? Did you get the job through the CEO's grandmother?" My blood ran cold. I turned and ran, back to the street, back into the chaos. Ethan's world had crashed into mine. And it wasn't gentle. That evening, I met him in the rooftop garden of Hale Tower. His tie was loosened, jaw clenched, eyes filled with fury. "I'm pulling you from the assistant role," he said without preamble. I froze. "What? You're being targeted. It's not safe anymore. I'll assign you elsewhere." I shook my head. "You're pushing me away. I'm trying to protect you." "I didn't ask for protection. I asked for a chance." His eyes met mine. "Then tell me, Anya, if you stay, if you fight this, you'll be fighting with me. For me. Are you ready for that?" My heart pounded. I stepped forward. "I'm already fighting for you." And for the first time, Ethan Hale, the cold, distant CEO, let his guard down. He didn't kiss me. He didn't need to. Because that look in his eyes told me I wasn't just his assistant anymore. I was his weakness. And in a world that demanded strength, loving me would be the most dangerous thing he ever did. The next 48 hours were a whirlwind of headlines, leaked photos, and corporate chaos. CEO caught dancing with mystery assistant. Is it love or scandal? WHO is Anya? From nowhere to the top floor. Nepotism or seduction? My inbox flooded with hate. Anonymous messages, veiled threats, and cruel gossip filled every corner of the internet. They dug up everything, my school records, the hospital where my mother was being treated, the rundown building I lived in. People I hadn't spoken to in years were giving exclusive interviews. Strangers made comments about my looks, my background, my worth. They wanted to break me. And honestly, it almost worked. I stopped showing up to work. I didn't answer Ethan's calls. I stayed in bed, blinds closed, phone off. I told myself I was protecting him, that I wasn't built for his world, that maybe they were right, maybe I didn't belong. Until one night, there was a knock on my door. I didn't move. Then came the voice. "Anya, open the door." "Ethan." I cracked the door open. Barely. He looked exhausted. Rumpled shirt, dark circles, like he hadn't slept. "You disappeared," he said. I stared at him. "I didn't want to ruin you." "You're not ruining anything," he growled. "You didn't ask for this." "I did. I danced with you. I defended you. I crossed the line." My voice broke. "They hate me. I don't care what they think." "You should." He stepped closer. And for the first time, I saw something behind his eyes, pain. Not just for me, but something deeper. Older. "I know what it's like to be judged. he said softly, to have every mistake weaponized. I've lived it. I swallowed. What happened? He looked away, jaw tightening. Years ago, my father, he didn't just leave the company. He left the country. And me, with a mess so big, I spent the first 5 years cleaning it up. I didn't breathe. I was 19 when I became the CEO. He said, no one believed in me. Not even the board. I fought for this company with everything I had. I became cold, calculated, because I had to. And now? I whispered. He looked at me, eyes burning. Now I find myself fighting again, but for something different. I blinked. For what? For you. That was the moment it all cracked. I pulled the door open fully and stepped into his arms. There was no pretense left between us. He kissed me, not like a fairy tale, but like a storm breaking after months of drought. Fierce, desperate, and honest. When we pulled apart, his forehead rested against mine. We do this, he said. We do it together. No more running. No more hiding. I nodded. I'm not afraid anymore. And I wasn't. Because for the first time in my life, I knew I wasn't fighting alone. But what we didn't know was that someone else, someone within Hale Industries, was watching. And they were about to make their move. One that would force a choice between love and survival. I returned to work hand in hand with Ethan. There were stares, glares, phones snapping photos, but we didn't flinch. Not this time. I was no longer just the assistant. I was his, and we didn't hide it. But happiness in a world built on power is never free. It happened 2 days later. An urgent email came in during a board meeting. Critical breach discovered. Confidential files leaked to a competitor. Traced back to employee credentials. Anya M. Lane. My heart dropped. Ethan stood immediately, scanning the report. This is false. But the room erupted. Board members shouting. PR teams panicking. The CFO demanding my suspension. My badge was revoked. Security was called. I stood frozen, every limb numb. Ethan, I whispered. He turned to me, eyes fierce. Don't say a word. Let me handle this. But even he couldn't stop what came next. My name plastered across headlines. The CEO's lover exposed in corporate leak. I was escorted out of Hale Tower by security. Humiliated and silent. That night, I sat on the edge of my bed. Eyes blank, suitcase open. I had made my decision. I would leave. For good. But before I could pack a single thing, the door burst open. It was Ethan. Wild eyes. Torn breath. Rain on his coat. I know who did it. He said. What? I breathed. Vanessa. She planted the file under your login. She had help from someone in IT. We have proof. Logs. Surveillance. Then clear my name. I said, choking. Please. I can't take this anymore. He walked toward me slowly. I already did. As of tomorrow, your name will be cleared. And Vanessa will be arrested. Tears spilled over. I wanted to thank him. To say everything. But he wasn't finished. I went to the board. He said, told them if they ever came after you again, I'd resign. I froze. You'd give up Hale Industries? For you? He said. Yes. I shook my head. Tears streaming down my face. You can't. This company is your life. He cupped my face gently. You're my life now. And just like that, every wall I'd built shattered. I kissed him like it was the first and last time I ever could. And in that moment, I knew. It didn't matter where I came from, what I'd suffered, who tried to tear us down. I had chosen to stay. And so had he. 1 year later, the ballroom of the Hale estate sparkled with chandeliers and laughter. I stood in front of a room full of people who once doubted me. Wearing a gown I never dreamed I'd own. Holding the hand of the man who never let me fall. Ethan Hale, now officially my husband. Mrs. Hale gave the toast with a wink, saying, you never know where kindness will take you. Sometimes, all the way to the top floor. And as I looked at the crowd, then at Ethan, I smiled. Because on the day I rushed to a job interview soaked and desperate. I thought the best I could hope for was survival. Instead, I found love, purpose, and the kind of life they said wasn't made for girls like me. But I proved them wrong. One kind act, one moment of courage, had changed everything. Forever.